The Duke of Windsor died today in Paris. He was 77 years old, and they don't say yet what he died of. In recent years, the Duke and Duchess of Windsor had become royal curiosity, whose glamour was wearing a bit thin. But 35 years ago, their story was a fairy tale, the story of the king who married the commoner. The Duke of Windsor was then King Edward VIII, the King of England. He was the eldest son of King George V, destined or doomed to rule the British Empire. As Prince of Wales, he toured the kingdom and became perhaps the world's best known and one of the world's most beloved royal playboys. George V died, and the Prince of Wales became Edward VIII. But into the king's life had come a commoner, Wallace Warfield Simpson, an American divorcee. In an agonized decision that shook the empire and delighted much of the rest of the world, King Edward gave up his throne for the woman he loved. They were married in France and went into a life of exile as the Duke and Duchess of Windsor, until the most recent years almost completely cut off from the royal family in Britain. Time passed, they aged, and at long last became a glittering, if fading symbol of charming but irrelevant elegance. The Duke of Windsor, dead today at the age of 77.
Inside the church, RAF officers stand guard. Windsor Castle, chief residence of English monarchy. 2,000 people an hour came to pay their respects. They literally queued miles and waited hours for the man they all loved.
Flags throughout Windsor were at half-mast, and though the castle was closed to the public, hundreds gathered quietly outside, sharing the occasion with the other mourners, among them political leaders, statesmen and diplomats.
The Archbishop of Canterbury was to pronounce the blessing at the end of the service, which lasted for just over half an hour. On 3 cushions, the insignia of the man described later in the service by Garter, King of Arms, as sometime the most high, most mighty, and most excellent monarch, Edward VIII. The coffin, draped with the Duke's personal standard, was carried by men of the 1st Battalion Welsh Guards. When Prince of Wales, he had become the first colonel of the regiment. Following behind, the men of the royal family, led by the Duke of Edinburgh and King Olaf of Norway, a first cousin of the Duke of Windsor.
Admiral of the Fleet, Field Marshal in the Army, and Marshal of the Royal Air Force, and sometime the most high, most mighty, and most excellent monarch, Edward VIII.
The royal party left for the castle. Throughout the service, the Duchess had stood or sat between the Queen and Prince Philip. Later, the Duke was buried in the royal burial ground at Frogmore, about half a mile from the castle. His grave is next to that of his brother, the Duke of Kent, and alongside the mausoleum, where Queen Victoria and Prince Albert are buried.